I was curious to ask you a question. So Brett and I recorded a podcast a little while back, just one-on-one, and we talked about emotional eating. I feel like you probably have some unique insights into that. How would you unpack that topic for people who might not even be aware that they're emotional eaters, like they binge and they just like haven't fully accepted it, or they just don't really know like what triggers them? Because it seems like to me like something that a lot of people just don't understand, that they've wired themselves a certain way
Sure.
around food emotionally, and they're not fully aware of it.
Yeah, so we only build things in our practice if there's a need for it. We notice that a lot of people have either trauma or they've struggled with eating disorder behavior prior, but supposedly not now, right? That's what the paperwork says. And we have found that over and over, there's like this negative perception of whatever, like this is not going to fix me, the diet, the supplement, the protocol, the whatever. And you see this negative view of the world. And as I learned more about the mind body, the limbic system retraining, I realized that's a lot of where people are chronically ill that are stuck. And I get it, because you've been to 10 doctors and nothing is fixing you. So at a certain point, you have to be skeptical and doubtful so that you can protect yourself. The other thing that we learned is, so we created a mind body program because we didn't think some of the programs out there was sufficient enough. And in that, we talk, and it's a hard program, but in one of the sessions we talk about core wounds, which is basically there was something that when you were a child was missing, whether it was security, belonging, being able to have your needs met, protection, security. There's many things, and if those things are lacking, then they will progress into your adult life, your adult relationships, and so you will act a certain way. And I think what happens is with addictions, I was watching something and I thought it was really powerful, but they say that addictions is oftentimes a sign that something's wrong in you, right? So like if you are feeling depressed and we think, okay, let's just pop a pill so I can not feel depressed anymore. But if your mood is low and you're just processing all these thoughts, maybe those thoughts are telling you what you need to fix in your life. Maybe it's this time to hunker down. Like, why do I feel depressed if everything's going right? And maybe that's the very thing we need to fix. And I think what we do though is we turn to things that kick up the dopamine. So all the addictive stuff, food, drugs, social media, scrolling, internet, shopping, gaming, and then we try to numb those feelings. And I think ultimately it goes down to what happened to you when you're a child. It's those core wounds of, I feel insecure, and so every time I feel that emotion of insecurity, maybe your dad wasn't around, so then when you're at work and your boss is mad and it's like similar emotions, you don't realize it, and so you turn to food. And so when you get home, you're just like, I'm just gonna veg. And I see people binge even on a carnivore diet, and so I know that it will help a lot because you don't have the blood sugar dysregulations. But if you don't heal the core wounds, if you don't heal why you're turning to food, and I think people don't, or they're not aware of that. But that's where, again, the food and mood journal comes in. So every time you're grabbing food, before you grab it, maybe the rule or the habit stack you have is, are you hungry? And if you're not hungry, why are you turning to this food? Why are you? And so it's just making what your habits are, your actions, hyper aware. And in our My Body program, we teach, you'll have a cue, whether it's an event, a trigger, and then that will affect your thoughts. And then it's your thoughts that then affect your behavior, right? So if you consider everything that goes on, like I'm getting cues from you guys, like, are you guys interested in what I'm sharing?
Super interesting.
So it's, but then I get the cues of like, okay, should I start like, settling down, and then we attach a emotion to that or a feeling. And a lot of times, again, it's from the childhood. It's, okay, so when mom and dad were fighting, I needed to make sure I wasn't around so that I wasn't causing any more problems. So maybe that's how I react. And a lot of times when our needs are not being met, and sometimes that people need to do a little work to figure out what are even my needs, we turn to food. We turn to the dopamine effect. So we stop feeling that uncomfortable feeling we're feeling. And so maybe that's the first question. Maybe the first question is, when you're turning to food, did something uncomfortable happen? Did something happen that you are turning to food? And I think a food and mood journal, making everything hyper contextualized and present and aware, will allow you to start noticing, oh, I didn't realize that when I watch TV, I always have to grab something to eat, and I'm numbing that way after a day of hard work. So that if you can't watch TV without snacking, then maybe you just got to stop watching TV for a little bit.
I love that mind body program too, because it's so easy to just hyperfixate on nutrition being the silver bullet.
It's not.
It's not. And I even noticed that, I honestly did notice that with myself too, where I've had periods of my life since going carnivore where my diet has been literally immaculate, where I'm not cheating at all, but I've always really held on to stress too. So even if my diet is perfect, but I'm stressed out, I will start to see like blood in my stool when I'm going to the bathroom. And that's a sign of like, all right, I have to like start meditating again. I have to make sure that I'm praying. I have to make sure that I'm getting 8 hours of sleep. And that's always just been my reminder of like, there's so many other factors in the context of your healing journey outside of just nutrition. Yes, it's a huge lever to pull, but there's a lot of other things. And I don't know, I feel like there's so many influencers that just focus on nutrition and that's all you need to care about. And if you eat carnivore, everything else is magically going to get better. And that's why I love how holistic your entire approach is, that it's multiple things, not just one thing.
Yeah, I was just telling on a different podcast, I was saying, everyone has a plan. That's Mike Tyson's quote, right? Everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. And I think when I wrote Carnivore Cure, I had a plan. And then my clients punched me in the face every day, right? And it made me everything that I believed, or I thought diet was the answer to everything. And it wasn't. And then it was like, okay, maybe it's diet plus sleep. And then it wasn't. And then diet plus sleep plus gut, and so on and so forth. And I realized everyone is so different of what's the trigger, and it's finding that root cause. That's what I always talk about, root cause. And I talk about healing, and it is not just one factor. And diet absolutely can affect, because when you're stressed, you can argue that your cortisol is more released, and then that causes more leaky gut, because instead of your body focusing on immune function and digestion, your body's like, go run, and all of your energy and is going to your extremities. And so you could say that's the argument about stress with the diet. But we also see, so there was a really good graphic released from this person called After School, and he shows a picture of a bee. And it's the perception of, so you see a bee, one person, and so we have billions and millions of neurons, and then atoms and cells and all that, and it all communicates with each other. And in one picture, the girl is looking at the bee and then sees, well, I think it's the guy, but so the guy sees a bee and then imagines, oh my gosh, if I get bit, this is toxicity, poison, I'm gonna die. And so you see all these little cells in the body showing that it's poison, and you see how it's gonna affect you emotionally, mentally, and probably physically. For the girl, she sees it and then imagines honey. And you see all these happy faces all throughout her body. And it shows every day we look at something, we wake up and we're like, oh, I don't feel good. Oh, I didn't get enough sleep. And then your mindset is negative. You're already releasing, the brain is already hearing that the day is going to be bad, potentially. And then you start releasing more cortisol. You're more heightened and aware in that sense. And then your immune system is just not functioning as well. And if you do that with every single thing that you run into, you can see how much the mind is actually affecting the rest of the body, even if you're eating a good diet. If your perception of the world is negative, the world will be negative. And we all know right now it's a super highly charged political space. And I just don't go on social media. Instagram used to be a place where people shared their family pictures and friend pictures and infographics of like, oh my god, yay, about ribeye. And now it's so polarizing. There's so much like, don't trust this group and don't trust this, and it's so negative. It's all headlines, and it honestly saddens me. So I don't go on, because I'm like, I need to, instead of focusing and getting charged up and angry, I'm going to use that energy to build something and help build a tool, build a book, help things, and help people to get better, because all of this negativity is just going to make people want to consume more of it, get more mad, and then not do anything in their life. And then they're going to feel, why do I feel so depressed?
Yes.